as per Article 89 of the 1986 Constitution, is established. And when this commission is established, the next thing is how do we ensure that this commission runs the affair of all civil service matter, and that's something that's the mandate we want to give it. So first and foremost, all elected officials from the president down, their salary structure must be set by this commission, and we now proposing at least a 30% cut. It could even be more, even say 50% or between 30 to 50% cut in the current salaries that they are currently making. And once that is done, because we say go into government, you should go for service to country and people and not to make money. So when we have that done, we will be looking at saving a huge sum of money, because if we just talk about the 30% cut and just focusing on your house alone, you will be talking about saving just from the salary cut of lawmakers $5.5 million per annum, and you can use that to do a lot of things. Like we're talking about the health sector. So we say for this year that we have saved this $5.5 million from the health sector, we want to use that to revamp all our major hospitals. We spent $5 million in 3 or 4 big hospitals in the country: JFK, Fubbi, Redemption, the CH Rennie. Also, we have this Telewion in Lofa. When you equip all of these facilities, you find that you have little need for somebody being sick in the interior have to come to Monrovia on a bad roads to come and seek medical attention. So that's something that we can do. So that's my first campaign that we're going to do right now. We're trying to raise 10,000 signatures for this quest, and we're calling all the Liberians to join same so that we can turn this thing around, so that we don't just complain as lawmakers are making salary. This is a fine opportunity to turn that around. Let's engage them as per Article 17, where they say you have the right to assemble and give your lawmakers instruction. So you know that you as citizens and you give power, the power we're giving them is not absolute power that they cannot be listed, they cannot be controlled. We consider ourselves as board of directors for the company, and we have them as managers. So if they are not performing as per our expectation, call them to book and say, look, it has to be done this way, because it doesn't make sense for an employee to decide how much he makes and you don't have, or you the employer don't have a say into it. And that's the current situation we have right now, where our lawmakers decide how much they make and the citizens cannot say anything, and at the end of the day it turns into tax increment, and you also don't have a say, but you have to follow. So how can we turn that around? So that's one of the solutions that we have found, and we think that we apply that, we can actually save this country a lot of revenue, because in 6 years you're talking about saving about 3 direction as we speak. And we want to, as you say, let's hit the ground running even before getting there. So when we get there, it's already easy to ride on. And the campaign now is to ensure that the Civil Service Commission, as per Article 89 of the 1986 Constitution, is established. And when this commission is established, the next thing is how do we ensure that this commission runs the affair of all civil service matter, and that's something that's the mandate we want to give it. So first and foremost, all elected officials from the president down, their salary structure must be set by this commission, and we now proposing at least a 30% cut. It could even be more, even say 50% or between 30 to 50% cut in the current salaries that they are currently making. And once that is done, because we say go into government, you should go for service to country and people and not to make money. So when we have that done, we will be looking at saving a huge sum of money, because if we just talk about the 30% cut and just focusing on your house alone, you will be talking about saving just from the salary cut of lawmakers $5.5 million per annum, and you can use that to do a lot of things. Like we're talking about the health sector. So we say for this year that we have saved this $5.5 million from the health sector, we want to use that to revamp all our major hospitals. We spent $5 million in 3 or 4 of the big hospitals in the country: JFK, Fubbi, Redemption, the CH Rennie. Also, we have this Telewion in Lofa. When you equip all of these facilities, you find that you have little need for somebody being sick in the interior have to come to Monrovia on a bad roads to come and seek medical attention. So that's something that we can do. So that's my first campaign that we're going to do right now. We're trying to raise 10,000 signatures for this quest, and we're calling all the Liberians to join same so that we can turn this thing around, so that we don't just complain as lawmakers are making salary. This is a fine opportunity to turn that around. Let's engage them as per Article 17, where they say you have the right to assemble and give your lawmakers instruction. So you know that you as citizens and you give power, the power we're giving them is not absolute power that they cannot be listed, they cannot be controlled. we consider ourselves as board of directors for the company, and we have them as managers. So if they are not performing as per our expectation, call them to book and say, look, it has to be done this way, because it doesn't make sense for an employee to decide how much he makes and you don't have, or you the employer don't have a say into it. And that's the current situation we have right now, where our lawmakers decide how much they make and the citizens cannot say anything, and at the end of the day it turns into tax increment, and you also don't have a say, but you have to follow. So how can we turn that around? So that's one of the solutions that we have found, and we think that we apply that, we can actually save this country a lot of revenue, because within 6 years you're talking about saving about $33 million per for each term, if you go by that trend, just from lawmakers. So that's something that we can do, and we think that to a larger extent we can succeed. And that will also help to prevent statement from, like the statement recently made by Senator Taylor, that the salary is not enough and they need more. So if you can strip that right from the lawmakers, you will not have them making such a statement, because they will also not have the willpower to go and decide how to increase their own salary, because that's one of the risks that we see right now. Once they have started complaining that the salary is not enough, we are looking at a possible increment in their salary in the next budgetary period. But if that right is revoked, you now have a level playing field, and lawmakers will not be able to manipulate the budget for their own selfish gain.
That brings me to my next question. It's a battlefield there at the Capitol building. I think you were aware a couple of years ago, the Senator Oscar Cooper stood and spoke on behalf of the same people, of the Liberian people, just with the kind of desire in mind you do have. He was outcast to the extent that he had to resign from committees, and he's, according to him, he just want to be a regular senator. So my question is this: how psychologically and emotionally prepared are you to face that challenge at the Capitol, to stand for the people that you are going to represent?
Yeah, that's something that we are prepared for, and for now, the approach that I'm taking for now is we're not going to ask the lawmakers for their way and pleasure. We want the citizens to give them that mandate. So if it will come through a national referendum, we'll push for it. And when the Constitution is back with that particular clause, the colleagues have nothing to do with that, because it is now the voices of the people. So we want to raise 10,000 signatures. So it's 10,000 persons that are going to be speaking at a moment. So after we have read that petition, that's 10,000 voices right there. And 10,000 voices, you can imagine 10,000 persons shouting at the same time. That's not a small voice. So that's what we're going to take it from that trend. So we're not going to liaise with colleagues and try to get them to agree. The people are going to compel them to agree. So that's the approach.
Where do you stand on the code of conduct?
The code of conduct, and that's one of the reasons why I'm also pushing for this, because I think the code of conduct is one-sided. It's more on the executive side, though we have accepted it as a law because the Constitution, the Supreme Court already endorsed it, and so that's something we want to hold. But as I said, you cannot say one group of people, like the executive branch, should resign 2 or 3 years because they will have undue advantage by using government resources to run their campaign for whatever office that they are seeking. So it's the same thing. You have lawmakers making their own salary. So this current budgetary period, you found that if you compare the budget for most of the guys in the house, there are some 300 or 400 increment on some other things that were even never there, like legislative rural travel. Those things were unnecessary. So all those are geared towards financing their campaign. So that's undue advantage. They're taking advantage of the Liberian resources to push your own selfish aim. So if we can have some of these things in place, you scrape the right and you have a level playing field, then people can now be able to function at will, and you can look at the code of conduct in full context, and I think we can drive in that direction.
Mr. Henries, you from the start, your emphasis had been on the health sector. We just touched on the civil servants, and we touched on the code of conduct, which is like a yardstick for public officials. How do you look at the educational system?
Yeah, that's one of our biggest issues, and I think sometime last year, July, we also did a formal petition to them in the direction we pushing for the inclusion of vocational skills in grade schools from 7th grade to 12th grade. And what we say so is that the middle class economy that we've been yearning for and been crying for, that's the main solution. Because if you have students going through high school from 7th grade to 12th grade to 6 years, learning some basic trade, carpentry, soap making, hairdressing, tie and dye, and so forth, when they graduate from high school, they're not going to start looking for somewhere to find a job They're not going to start looking for a new place to go and learn something. So if they don't have the opportunity to go to college immediately, they already have skills ready to impact society to change their lives. So even while in high school, if they are serious, they can also start setting up their own businesses and little shop and start making some money to save money to follow their tuition to college if they want to. And they can also define and find their career path early, because you know that I have passion probably for construction. So I will put more time in masonry and carpentry while I'm in school. So by the time I graduate, when I go into college, I can pursue some civil engineering or something to change my own life and make so. So you have people going to that direction, and so that's a clue that I think we can push. And once we succeed in that direction, every grade school from both public and private running with this, we will in a shorter period of time reach that point where Liberians will start taking charge of the economy, and we can start comparing Liberians now to start taking advantage of some contractual projects, and we can slowly get away from and push our foreign brothers that are running the show right now out of business, and giving Liberians more opportunity, because they will be more prepared and ready to take advantage of the so many opportunities that we have in the country.
The political leader of the Alternative National Congress, Alexander B. Cummings Jr., he has a strong plan for the middle class system of Liberia. Now I'm hearing you with some supporting plan. Is that what drew your attention to run on the ANCT?
Yeah, the first time I sat with Mr. Cummings, and he made one statement, and that took me and said, I think this guy is ready for business. And he said, first time he said, how can we move our budget from 600 million to about $2 billion? So moving from 600 million to $2 billion, you're talking about additional $1.4 billion increment to the budget. So you're finding more sources of revenue to support our development drive. So that means that the unemployment issue we've been yearning for, you have to have a reduction in unemployment to make sure that to generate that extra $1.4 billion. If so, that solves the problem of unemployment and also bring more money for other basic development initiatives. So because if we keep running with this $600 million, we will not get anywhere, because about 85% of that goes to recurring costs. What will 15% do to the major issue we have with fixing the road to Lofa County, fixing the road to the southeast? So we'll have to keep begging to revamp the water sector in Monserrato. You need about $360 million. So it will keep running with this $600 million. We will forever be drinking from hand pumps and children crossing the street with water and tops on their head, which I say is ridiculous. So how can we move from 600 million to $2 billion? So that drew me. I said, then this guy is ready for business, and I think he's the real deal. And for different interaction, we share similar platform, we share similar plans, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm on the ANC side, and we're moving to see how we can share some of this vision with agricultural projects and so forth. We will be launching our agricultural project sometimes in this month on the island, actually with agrofishery, where we're teaching the guys to grow fish in the water. We're telling them that instead of using the waterway that we've all been using over the period just for toilets and dump site, you can now use it to grow tilapia and make some money. And that's a sector, if Liberia invests into it properly, we can generate additional $140 million to add to our national budget. That's about 24% of our current budget. So that's a sector that we also can look into working with. And that's some of the visions that also Mr. Cummings shared. And I think working in that direction, we can change a lot of things around.
Lastly, Mr. Henries, you are talking about an electorate that are uneducated in majority. They are used to this belly-born politicking. How do you stand? What are your strategies to win these guys over with all of these good ideals, considering the kind of election practices that we have in the country?
Yeah, I know. I agree with your point, and I always keep telling people as I have time to engage them that the reasons why we have this country like this is because of the decisions that we make during elections. And to a larger extent, there's a saying that said, you don't get what you deserve, or you get what you negotiate for. So in the past, we've always been negotiating for toilets, hand pumps, jerseys, tournaments, beauty pageant, little forum centers, quasi macro loans, and all those stuff. So those are the things we've been negotiating for. And because of that, we keep getting the kind of leaders we're having. So now we're telling them that you have to change the approach. If you go into a doctor and you're taking a medication and it's not working for you, change your doctor, change your prescription. So in this direction, we have to find a way. We have teams that will also start telling them, we have to find a way to send that message down to that man that sits on the road to do his shoemaking, because that's the only job he knows. But because he's content with that, he settles for somebody that will give him $50 because he thinks that it's okay that he will buy a few thread and to the rest of his life he can still be there content sewing shoe. But you can move from sewing shoe to also own a whole shoe factory. So that's the kind of vision we're trying to push into people's minds, to tell them that you can rise up from whatever level you are, but you have to be willing to give the right people the right opportunity to create an opportunity for you. Because the more we don't give people the opportunity, we need a country where we can create opportunities, the people can chase the opportunities than chasing people. Because sometimes when you actually need people, you might not get them because they also have their own problems. But if you have the opportunity and you chase the opportunities, they won't let you down because you can largely succeed in those directions. So how to send the message is key. So we've been trying to give the message out, and we hope that they can buy it, and we pushing more our different projects in those directions. And people are thinking they are picking it up, and those are things that I think once we continue with it, we can make a turn around. Liberians are not stupid people, but they get frustrated over a period of time from past leaders. But sometimes they have contributed also to the decisions that they make that are affecting them today. Because only two things that affect, only thing that affect you is the choices that you make, and we always make choices along the way. So this time we must change it around and make better choices so that we have the better deed done. Because election is not, the government is not formed during inauguration, but at the ballot box. The people you elect at the ballot box determine whether you move forward or you move backward.
In just 30 seconds, what will be your last words to the Liberian people?
We say if it is for us, it has to be by us. And Liberians, there are two questions we ask ourselves during this election. What kind of Liberia we intend to see after 2017? When you answer that question for yourself, that's not a palaver or discussion question. Are you talking to yourself? Draw a picture of the kind of Liberia you want to see. And after that, who amongst the many candidates can fulfill that Liberia for you at least 85%?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We say we don't expect everybody to look in their personal pockets to finance some of these things, but the resources that we generate, we increase taxes. And we say when you increase taxes, it shouldn't be going towards paying salaries and benefits. Your taxes should be working for the people in the sector of health, in the sector of providing basic infrastructures and water and sewer facility. How can we upgrade them? How can we upgrade electricity to ensure that all these things come to full? So we're looking at, from that direction, every year, how do we focus on the health sector? It will say that for this year we have probably 5 million or so we can pump into JFK to upgrade JFK with state-of-the-art technology, with facility. We work in that direction and ensure that that year the main thing is oversight. There where oversight comes in. Budgetary period, you make sure that it is covered in the budget, and you call after, if it is meant for the first quarter, the first 3 months, or the first 2 months, call the finance minister, call the revenue authority. Have you raised the revenue as per the budget? If yes, what's stopping this project from taking place if it has not been executed? So those are some of the engagement that you need to do to engage government, to see how you engage the executive to ensure that those sectors are up and running. But that is one of the shortcomings we see in this regime, where these guys are just focused on what's in the county development fund, and they're only chasing county development fund as opposed to making sure that I have budgetary allotment for those other sectors, and following up with the ministers to ensure that the funding are available and the project are executed to benefit the vast majority of the Liberian people. So that's something that we're going to be working on. We show that with that trend, we will make a lot of impact and we can turn things around.
Mr. Henry.